Vanished and Forgotten. The Lost Women of Hamilton. Susan Gourley, Felicia Floriani, and Project Advocate. Hello, I'm Jay Nickel of Nickel Investigations, and this is Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast. Last week we explored the chilling murder of Kimlyn Tolgyes, and the unsettling question, was a serial predator stalking women in Hamilton in the early 2000s? But Kimlyn wasn't the first victim, and tragically, she wouldn't be the last. In today's episode, we dive deeper into the mystery, uncovering the disappearance of Susan Gourley and the brutal murder of Felicia Floriani. Two cases with eerie connections to Kimlyn's. Were these crimes the work of the same shadowy figure? We'll also take a hard look at the police response, including the formation of Project Advocate, a task force dedicated to hunting down whoever was responsible for these attacks. Did they come close to unmasking a killer? Or did a murderer slip through the cracks, vanishing into the night? Let's find out. Hello, I'm Jay Nickel, Nickel Investigations. And this is Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast. Ontario Cold Cases is a gripping true crime podcast that shines a light on unsolved murders, disappearances, and forgotten crimes from across the province and the world. With meticulous research, compelling storytelling, and a commitment to historical accuracy, we bring you the real stories of victims, investigators, and suspects, stories that demand to be heard. Each week, we take you deep into the world of true crime with a packed schedule of episodes. Tuesdays, historical true crime cases, exploring infamous and obscure crimes from history. Wednesdays, the Mick and Mac Mysteries, a thrilling fictional detective series set in 1950s Toronto. Thursdays, World Cold Case Thursday, investigating unsolved cases from around the globe. Sundays, Ontario Cold Cases, the latest episode uncovering an unsolved mystery from Ontario. From high-profile crimes that shock the nation to little-known cases waiting for justice, we uncover the truth, one case at a time. Join us as we explore the dark corners of history and mystery, where every clue could lead to answers and every case deserves a second look. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts and never miss an episode of Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast. The vanishing of Susan Gourley, what we know. It was November 21st, 2001, when Susan Gourley was last seen in the area of Barton and Sturton Avenue in Hamilton, Ontario. And then, nothing. She was gone. Her disappearance wouldn't be officially reported until months later, but even the exact timing of that remains unclear. Hamilton police records indicate her family and friends filed a missing person report on August 30th, 2002, while the RCMP states her mother reported her missing on February 28th, 2002. Whether it was winter or late summer when authorities took notice, one thing is certain. Susan Gourley vanished into the shadows during a time of brutal violence against women in Hamilton. At least 10 other women were attacked, murdered, or caught in violent altercations within just 1 year. Was there a single predator lurking in the city's underbelly, striking again and again? Or were multiple dangerous offenders operating in the same hunting ground, preying on the vulnerable? Not every case has been definitively linked, nor is it likely that all trace back to the same individual. One grim fact is undeniable. Hamilton had become a dangerous place for women, particularly those working in the sex trade. And Susan Gourley, like too many others, never got the chance to tell her story. Felicia Floriani, a life cut short. On June 10th, 2002, Felicia Floriani made a simple promise. She would meet her friend, Danielle Brown, at the corner of Upper Paradise and Hadland at 2:00 p.m. But she never showed. At first, Danielle was annoyed. Then as the minutes stretched into hours, worry crept in. Felicia wasn't perfect. She was troubled. A runaway who had spent years bouncing between the streets and group homes. She used drugs, worked in the sex trade, and made dangerous choices. But she had never stood Danielle up before. I told my mom Felicia never met me, Danielle later recalled. And then a week later, police contacted me and said she was missing. That was the moment everything changed. For nearly a decade, Felicia remained just a missing girl, a name on a police report, a face on a fading flyer. Until that day, when a Lincoln farmer, trudging through a sodden field, stumbled upon bones. Felicia had finally been found. A city under siege. From the beginning, Felicia's disappearance was different. Her name was one of 8, tied to Project Advocate, the massive joint police task force launched in 2003 to investigate a terrifying pattern. 5 sex workers attacked, 2 others vanished, and 1, Kimlyn Tolgyes, brutally murdered. Investigators originally believed one man was responsible, a predator who drove a white car, prowling Hamilton streets for vulnerable women. But over time it became clear there were 2. Over 15 months, Project Advocate led to the arrest of 2 violent offenders. Peter Konka found him fit to stand trial before later being convicted of sexual assault. He was deported to the Czech Republic. John Kraus pleaded guilty to sexual assault and is still incarcerated on unrelated charges. Neither man was charged with murder, but after they were locked away, the attacks stopped. Still, Felicia remained missing, and for years there was the slimmest hope that maybe she was out there somewhere, still alive. That hope ended on that Monday, when forensic tests confirmed remains in the field belonged to Felicia Floriani. And now, her case was officially a homicide. Who was Felicia Floriani? Felicia wasn't just a victim. She was a daughter, a friend, a girl who once had dreams. She met Danielle at Charlton Hall, a home for girls with mental health issues. With long, naturally curly blonde hair, hazel eyes, and a tiny frame, Felicia was just 5 feet 8 inches tall, 120 pounds. She had a pierced nose, a love for blue eyeshadow, was rarely seen without her hip-hugger jeans, sweatshirts, and platform boots. But behind the makeup and the tough exterior was a girl with a painful past. Her father, John Floriani, married her mother, Kelly, and she was pregnant. Felicia was born on February 11th, 1987. By the time she was 18 months old, her mother had left. Little Felicia clung to her father so tightly, he called her the Shadow. She spent hours catching frogs and bugs, endlessly watching The Little Mermaid. But stability was fleeting. John started a new family, and a bitter custody battle began between him and Felicia's maternal grandparents. At 12 years old, she watched her grandmother die of a heart attack. Not long after, her mother died of a drug overdose. By her teens, Felicia was spending more time in Hamilton streets than at home. She was diagnosed with a learning disorder, enrolled at Sir John A. Macdonald High School, but rarely showed up for class. Danielle tried to look out for her. Felicia crashed at her house They suntanned together, drank together, and Felicia always made sure Danielle's room was spotless. She was really caring, Danielle said, but she never took care of herself. Up next, the last goodbye. The last goodbye. The last time they spoke, Felicia borrowed a pair of Danielle's pants and was planning to return them. They arranged to meet at the street corner. Felicia never made it. Danielle had warned her not to hitchhike, to be careful, to stay away from strange men in cars. But Felicia never thought anything bad would happen to her. Now Danielle thinks about her all the time. She was always depressed. She never thought she was worth anything, she said. The truth finally revealed. On the first anniversary of Felicia's disappearance, her father spoke about the daughter he had lost long before she ever went missing. Now, after all these years, police had to deliver the news that the bones in that Lincoln field were all that remained of his little girl. They were upset, said Detective Greg Jackson, the investigator who had worked on Felicia's case since day one. But in the end, they were relieved. They have an answer as to where she is. The truth doesn't bring Felicia back. At least her story won't be forgotten. And as Danielle says, the world needs to know. She wasn't just a hooker. She was a little girl. Remains of missing teen identified, presumed murdered. For over a decade, Felicia Floriani was a ghost. Her fate, a painful mystery that haunted Hamilton. But on April 19th, a farmer clearing debris in a remote field near St. Catharines, Ontario, stumbled upon something chilling. Skeletal remains, partially clothed, hidden in the brush. Now police have confirmed what many feared. Those bones belonged to 15-year-old Felicia Floriani, missing since September 2002, and they believed she was murdered. A discovery long overdue. The location where Felicia's remains were found, off Church Road in West Lincoln. It's a floodplain, a place a few would venture. Acting Inspector Jim Princeton noted that the area was difficult to access, making the discovery even more startling. The farmer, Mark Mosker, described the moment he uncovered the remains as stunning and deeply unsettling. He had owned the land for years. He had never ventured to that particular corner. I was just clearing garbage and brush, he said. I never expected to find something like that. A case that never found justice. Felicia's disappearance was always a suspected homicide. But without a body, there was always a sliver of hope. Maybe she had simply vanished, started over somewhere new. That hope died with the confirmation of her remains. Her case had been part of Project Advocate, a joint task force investigating a suspected serial predator hunting sex trade workers in Hamilton and Halton. The task force connected 8 brutal attacks dating back to 2001, including the murder of 19-year-old Kimlyn Tolgyes, whose body was dumped in a Burlington park in 2002. Felicia was believed to be one of his victims. So was Susan Gourley, 39, another woman who vanished without a trace. The suspect was never caught. After 50 months of investigating with no arrests and no new leads, Project Advocate was shut down. But the horror it uncovered remains undeniable. 1 woman murdered, 2 women missing, now presumed dead, 5 others attacked, one left permanently brain damaged. The man behind it all? Still out there. A troubled life, a tragic end. According to Hamilton police records, Felicia had a history of running away, surviving by working in the sex trade. She was last seen in September 2002, after which she simply disappeared. Now, after more than a decade, she has been found. Her killer remained a mystery. The Ontario Coroner's Office was analyzing what little evidence remained, but police were keeping key details, like the cause of death, under wraps. One thing, however, is certain. This was no accident. Felicia Floriani was murdered. And her killer? Still unaccounted for. Up next, Project Advocate. The hunt for Hamilton serial predators. Project Advocate. The hunt for Hamilton serial predators. By 2003, the streets of Hamilton and Halton had become a hunting ground for a predator, or possibly predators. Women were being attacked, vanishing without a trace, or turning up dead. Kimlyn Tolgyes was murdered. Susan Gourley disappeared. Felicia Floriani was missing. In response, Project Advocate was launched, a joint task force between Hamilton and Halton Police, dedicated to unraveling the web of violence, disappearances, and brutal sexual assaults targeting sex workers. The team was small but determined. 4 Hamilton detectives and 2 from Halton, led by Staff Sergeant Steve Rabb of the Hamilton Police Services. 1 predator or more. At first, the task force was convinced the attacks were the work of a single sadistic killer, a shadowy figure striking again and again. But as the investigation deepened, the theory shifted. First, the suspect list expanded to 7. Then, as evidence mounted, it was narrowed to 5 possible predators, each a potential threat, each capable of the horrific crimes under investigation. But despite 800 tips, 150 persons of interest, months of relentless detective work, the breakthroughs never came. In 2004, with no arrests, no charges, and no closure, Project Advocate was shut down. At the time, Felicia Floriani was still missing. Her remains wouldn't be discovered until 2012, scattered in a farmer's field in West Lincoln, Ontario. Susan Gourley? Still missing. Still presumed dead. The case that never closed. Project Advocate wasn't just a police initiative. It was a mandate from the Ministry of the Attorney General, designed to improve coordination between law enforcement agencies in major investigations. But in the end, it didn't deliver the justice these women deserved. The killers, or killers, responsible for their deaths walked away, untouched, unidentified, and unpunished. That chilling reality leaves one question hanging over the city like a dark cloud. Did the predator stop? Or is he still out there? Project Advocate, the timeline of a predator's reign of terror. Between 2001 and 2004, Hamilton and Halton were gripped by a wave of brutal attacks, disappearances, and murders targeting women, most of them sex workers. What began as a string of violent assaults soon escalated to murder, sparking Project Advocate, a special police task force dedicated to hunting down the predator or predators responsible. Following is a chronology of horror that investigators believe was linked to one or more serial predators operating in the region. 2001, the first attacks begin. January 9th, 2001, the predator strikes for the first time. Victim 1, a 40-year-old sex worker, serves as a client, then pulls a gun and robs her. March 6, 2001. The attacks escalate to strangulation. Victim 2, a 17-year-old sex worker is strangled unconscious with a ligature. When she wakes, her pants are down, her money is gone, and her neck is permanently scarred. September 25th, 2001. Another near-death escape. Victim 3, 33-year-old woman, is also strangled with a ligature, but it breaks. She manages to escape. October 2001. Police take action. A warning is issued to sex workers. A composite sketch of a possible suspect is released. 2002. Women start to vanish and die. November 2001, the first disappearance. Victim 4, Susan Gourley, 39, is last seen alive. Her mother reports her missing on February 28, 2002, while Hamilton police list the report as August 31st, 2002. She's never been found and is presumed dead. August 1st to 2nd, 2002. A terrifying car ride. Victim 5. A 43-year-old woman is coaxed into a white sporty car by a man who buys her coffee. He drives her over the Skyway Bridge into Burlington, then down deserted roads. She realizes he never comes to a full stop at intersections, so she can't jump out. He pulls into Kearns Park, where he turns violent and sexually assaults her. She escapes and calls for help. Another report suggests the attacker threw her out of the car, and she was not a sex worker. August 2002. Another desperate escape attempt. A witness sees a sex worker trying to escape from a small, white sporty car on Barton Street, east of Oak Avenue. She has welts and scratches on her neck, but vanishes before police can find her. August 29, 2002. Murder. Victim 6. The naked, decomposed body of Kimlyn Judy Tolgyes, 19, is found at Kerncliffe Park in Burlington. She was last seen getting into a red pickup truck on Grant Avenue around 9 o'clock p.m. on August 23rd or 24th. Police believe she was killed elsewhere and dumped. September 2002. Another disappearance. Victim 7. Felicia Floriani, 15, a runaway known to be involved in the sex trade, is reported missing. Her remains will not be found until 2012 in a West Lincoln field. September 4th, 2002. Another near-fatal attack. Victim 8. An 18-year-old woman is found unconscious in the bushes of Barton and Hess Streets. She'd been beaten and strangled with a ligature, leaving her with severe brain damage. November 2002. Project Advocate is born. Police re-release the composite sketch and expand the investigation. 2003. Predator strikes again. March 5th, 2003. A brazen attack on the street. A 33-year-old woman is assaulted as she steps off a bus at King and Wentworth. She fights back and escapes. April 2003. The search for the missing woman intensifies. Cadaver dogs search Kerncliffe Park for Felicia Floriani and Susan Gourley, but find nothing. May 13th, 2003. The victim escapes before police arrive. A woman is sexually assaulted and robbed after accepting a ride home. She manages to escape and calls police from a nearby office building, but disappears before officers arrive. The attacker is driving a dark gray Chevrolet or GMC truck. June 26, 2003. The predator attacks twice in one night. 1:30 a.m., the sex worker is picked up in Hamilton, taken to Waterdown, and punched in the face when she asks to go home. She escapes into the bushes. 5 o'clock a.m. The same man picks up another victim, drives her to Old Guelph Road in Dundas, and assaults her. John Earl Krause is arrested for the attacks. August 2003. Breakthrough, but not justice. Police profile the predator as a power-assertive rapist. Peter Conca is charged for sexually assaulting and forcibly confining a woman. Krause and Conca are in custody by October 2004 to 2006. The case falls apart. February 2004. Police reveal a shocking truth. After years of hunting one suspect, detectives admit they believe multiple predators were responsible. Up to 7 men are under investigation. May, June 2004. Project Advocate is disbanded. No one is charged for murder. Felicia Floriani is still missing. Susan Gourley remains a ghost. February 2006. A new suspect emerges. Michael Durant, a convicted killer, is investigated in connection with Kimlyn Tolgyes' murder. Up next, What We Know and Project Advocate's final tally. What we know now. Project Advocate's final tally. 800 tips investigated. 150 persons of interest. 3 arrests. Conca, Krause, and another fellow named Williams. No one charged for murder. After Krause, Conca, and Williams were jailed, the attacks stopped. But did police really catch all the predators? Or did others simply fade into the shadows? One thing is certain. Hamilton streets were never safe for its most vulnerable women. And the full truth, it may never be known. The end of Project Advocate, and justice denied. By late May 2004, after 800 tips, 150 persons of interest, and 3 years of relentless investigation, Project Advocate was shut down. The task force, once the best hope for uncovering the truth behind the murder of Kimlyn Tolgyes, the disappearance of Susan Gourley, and the suspected slaying of Felicia Floriani, was quietly dismantled. Its detectives reassigned its cases, slipping into the cold. Superintendent Ken Bond delivered the final word. Eventually, he ran out of leads to investigate on a regular basis, he said. We come down now to a smaller list of things to do. So we decided that it was best to work in our own jurisdictions. What once involved 4 Hamilton and 2 Halton officers had now shrunk to just 1 per police service. A case that faded into silence. At the time of the task force dissolution, only 70 leads remained, but none were deemed priority. No names, no license plates, nothing solid enough to chase down a killer. Hamilton and Halton pooled their resources for a reason: the sheer volume of tips spanning both regions. But in the end, it wasn't enough. And so, in the wake of Project Advocate's demise, one horrifying truth remained: no one was ever charged with Kimlyn Tolgyes' murder. No one was ever charged with Felicia Floriani's murder. No one was ever charged with Susan Gourley's disappearance. The predators who stalked Hamilton's streets, who strangled, who beat, who killed, some were caught for lesser crimes. But the true mastermind, the worst of them all, he was never brought to justice. Make sure you subscribe to Ontario Cold Cases so you never miss an episode. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and more. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a rating and a review. It helps us bring more cold cases to light and keeps these stories alive. I'm Jay Nichol of Nichol Investigations, and this has been Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, some cases may go cold, but they are never forgotten.